leaders who take on a coaching style of leadership can enjoy many benefits. There are certain traits which are natural for people to become coaches rather than directive type leaders. I'll explain that in this video. Hello, I'm Stephen Goldberg of Optimus Performance, bringing you practical tips and ideas on leadership, team development, and employee performance in the workplace. In my last video, I spoke about the type of organization which is best suited to promote leaders who take on a coaching style of leadership. Now, there's a transition that needs to happen, and if you're a leader in a company that wants to become a coach, you need to look at the culture of the company. Is it supportive to what you want to do? Of course, you could still be a coach, but it's easier if the whole organization has a mindset to take on a coaching style of leadership. Now, there are certain traits or personality traits, thinking style, and interests that best support implementing the skills to be a good coach. I'm going to cover that, and I'm going to use the tool that I use to explain and illustrate that, and that's the PXT Select. Now, I use this tool with my customers to help them hire the right person for the job, but it's also a great tool to promote people, especially those that you want to promote into a management position or leadership role. And it's also a great tool to coach people. So if you're the leader and you want to coach your team members, having this assessment, that information that it provides, is very powerful. Now, when I look at leadership, we look at, or if we take this tool rather, which is the PXT Select, it's broken into three areas: the thinking style, the behavioral traits, and interest. The interests are occupational interests. This tool was designed for the workplace. The thinking style section will answer the question, can the person do the job? Now, there's 5 dimensions: the composite score, which is the average of verbal skill, verbal reasoning, numerical skill or ability, and numerical reasoning. So the composite score is the average of the 4 and will tell you the learning pace of the person. Now, if you're a leader who wants to coach engineers, those are your people in your department, your team members, you probably need a higher learning index because you're coaching people that also have a high learning index. It doesn't mean you have to be an engineer. Probably you are if you're head of an engineering department. But when you're a coach, you don't necessarily need to be the expert of that technology or whatever it is. You need obviously to have some good understanding, but what you want to do is to be able to coach those that are the experts to be best at what they do and deliver the best results they can to the team and the organization. The second section is behavioral traits. So these are your personality defined in behavioral terms. What I like to look for from people that we want to be good coaches to their employees is to be, I look at the scale of pace, assertiveness, and decisiveness as key indicators of how they will be as coaches. Because pacing is, one of the skills of being a good coach is listening. And active listening is a skill that we teach in our leadership training, and it's listening with understanding, with empathy. Now, if you score in the mid to low high range of that scale of pace, it means that you have a good energy, but you're not too energetic. And that would mean if you're too high, you would probably lack the patience to listen well. Another area is the assertiveness scale. Again, if you're too high, you may be too pushy with the person and not listen well, and ask questions to get the person to formulate their own answers. Sociability is another one. You want to be kind of mid-range in sociability, because if you're too high, maybe you'll be too friendly and talk too much. If you're too low, you may not want to interact with people enough to engage in coaching with them. Decisiveness is another important one. If you're too high there, you may, again, start telling the person what the decision should be rather than coach them on formulating their own decision. Because a big part of empowerment and using a coaching style of leadership to empower people is getting them to make their own decisions. A good example was the one I gave in a previous video about the war in Ukraine, and how through training they help the leaders transform their style from being very autocratic, which they learned from the Russians, to being more empowering, so people on the front line could make their own decision. And the result was fantastic for a small country like Ukraine being able to defend itself from a powerful one like Russia. So those are some key areas. Of course, every scale is important. When it comes to interest, the most important one that I find is people service. If you don't have people service as one of your top interests, that means you won't enjoy enough that skill or that behavior of spending time helping, mentoring people, training them. And that's key to being a good coach. So you want to have that as one of your top interests. It could be tied with others, as long as it's not something that's low on that scale, because we tend to avoid what we don't enjoy doing. We'll seek out spending time with the things we like. So if you're, let's say, going back to a leader who's an engineer, and you like technical stuff, because there's six interest areas, which I'm showing here on the screen. And if your top three are, let's say, technical, enterprising, and financial administration, and people is lower down, then you're going to want to spend time in tasks related to those top three and less related to, let's say, people service or your lower three. And that's why when we look at the reports, we look at creating a performance model for a job and then matching people to that performance model. And we could see what are their top interests and what are the ones required for the job. And that creates that percentile match, which you see up on screen. The other thing that I like about the PXT Select, using that as a tool in helping leaders become better coaches and understanding themselves better, what their strengths and their challenges are, is that it can also generate a leadership report. And I like this because it takes, it shows 6 clusters for leadership: creating a vision, developing strategies, ensuring results, inspiring people, being approachable, and mentoring others. And it, as you can see on screen, it's using the scales or the dimensions from the report and where the person scores to deliver a report that points out where the person's strengths are and where their challenges may be in each of these 6 clusters. So I really like that because the person coaching the leader will have this information, the leader themselves as well, and that allows you to engage in some deep discussion and some goal setting, some development to balance the person out. Now, you can change who you are. Experts say that our personality is set at a very young age. All we can do is through awareness modify our behaviors according to what we need to do and the people that we need to interact with. So if you want to take on a coaching style of leadership to drive better motivation and empowerment, free up your time maybe through delegation, then you need to understand yourself better, and using some tool like the PXT Select can be really beneficial. And actually, I offer for qualified people and companies a free test run of this tool, and there's a link for that in the description of the video. And you can also request sample reports from my webpage on this tool. There's a link for that as well in the description. So I highly recommend taking on a coaching style of leadership if your organization can support that. And it's a journey, it's a progressive work that you need to do. Again, some people maybe have more natural tendencies than others, but everyone can work towards it as best they can. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Do so now. Turn on notifications so you get news of new videos. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk again soon.